morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. This is a session called the Solving the Student Engagement Crisis. I want to welcome all of you. My name is John Kim. I'm a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School. In addition to that, I run a company called District Management Group, and I have some wonderful colleagues here from that. We work with school districts. I feel like we have a very large and high bar. This is the end of, I'm sure, a very busy conference. And so I've told the panelists we're not only going to talk about solving the student engagement crisis, but we're going to be talking about solving the panel engagement crisis. And so I've asked them to be provocative, to be interesting, and hopefully we don't just agree with each other. I have just a wonderful panel. I should say the first thing I did want to say is that Guido from Nearpod couldn't be here. But Rajiv Arora is here, so thank you, Rajiv, for coming in. And I also wanted to just announce that, as many of you probably have heard, is that Nearpod and Flocabulary is now part of the Nearpod family. And so, okay, that deserved that, okay. I told them, even though Nearpod now and Flocabulary together, you guys don't have to just agree, okay, just because you've only been together for a day, all right? And I've separated them at the two ends of the table, so, we can have some discussion. And then the other special thing is that we have Aleigha from the Atlanta Public Schools. So we actually have, not just, entrepreneurs and investors talking to each other. We actually have somebody who actually can tell us what it's really like. So Aleigha, welcome. And then we have Alex from Flocabulary at the end, and then we have Amir from Polyup. So what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly go by for each of you to just say a little bit about, hey, what is it that you do, and why is that what you do going to be helpful for student engagement, and then let's have a discussion, okay? So why don't we start with you, actually?
All right.
Okay, Rajiv, so tell us what you do.
All right, so I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Nearpod, and our whole job actually is to make sure that we engage students in the classroom. We call ourselves a student engagement platform. So to engage you, let me do this. How many of you have heard about Nearpod? Stand up.
They're already standing.
How many of you? Yeah, okay. Everybody in the back row has already heard of it. All right, go ahead and sit down. How many of you have heard about Flocabulary? Stand up. That's beautiful, look at you. How many of you have heard about Polyup? Stand up. All right, that's pretty good too.
I didn't want you to be feeling alone.
That's good, that's good.
Yeah.
So whoever didn't stand up, now stand up. Perfect. You're the people that we're actually talking to, because the rest of them already know, what's going on. So
Rajiv, can I just tell you, more people stood up for Flocabulary than for Nearpod.
This is perfect.
I know, yeah, this is perfect.
These are fighting words.
Fighting words.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
good.
So Nearpod has been around since 2011-12. We started out as devices started coming out, and teachers needed to figure out what to do with these devices. So the first thing we wrote was a platform which allows a teacher to synchronize all the devices in the classroom. You press next, the greatest next thing that you want to present to the classroom happens. It could be a virtual reality field trip, it could be a video, or whatever it is that the teacher wanted to do. Maybe a quiz to really make sure that all this stuff that's standing up, standing down that I did, you can actually get that all right on your device. And then after that, over the last couple of years, we've done over 10,000 lessons. So almost any topic in K12, all standards aligned, teacher can go and just search, and there's probably a lesson on that topic for that grade, for that subject. And they can just start from there, customize, and start teaching. Excellent. And really make sure that the students are interacting back and forth, and it's not just a sit and get. It's actually a super engaging lesson. So that's what we're in the business of doing.
All right, thank you. How about you, Amir? Tell us what you do.
Hi, this is Amir, and thanks for standing, all of you. We haven't been around from 2011. We just started in 2019 to release our platform. It started on January 7th of this year. What we do is we bring virtual makerspaces. We believe that every kid at every place in the world has to be able to have a makerspace at their pocket, on their table, at zero cost. And that's what we're delivering over the past 3 months. is a problem-solving platform that kids and teachers can author their problem and share, and others play. We have more than, as of this Saturday, we just moved past 10 million problems solved in more than 30 countries. Wow. And 500,000 problems have been authored in these 30 countries. US is about 45% of traffic, and we haven't done $1 in marketing. So.
Fantastic. All right. Aleigha, so how did you end up coming on this panel? What do you do?
It's a good question. I don't know, but these are some great partners. I've worked with them before, besides you, but we'll take care of that. So I'm the executive director for instructional technology in Atlanta Public Schools. It's an urban school district. And that's a loaded title because a lot of people go, okay, so what do you do? So I have 3 areas. I have all of the media specialists or the librarians that we're trying to get to become media specialists. I'm sure a lot of you know what that struggle looks like. It's about 80 of them. I also have our virtual middle and high school, so 6 through 12. We offer virtual courses. And then I have the fun part, the instructional technology department. I have 4 digital learning specialists, and we'll get into what that means probably a little bit later. And I have 16 educational technology specialists that work with teachers on integrating technology into the classroom. So I started this work about 7 years ago in APS, and my whole goal was to get away from click training. Y'all know what I mean when I say click training? File, save as, like I'm trying to get away from that and really go deep with technology integration. So that's my role.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Alex.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying that the only person up here who knows anything is Aleigha, because she's doing the hard work of teaching students and working with teachers, and I'm so happy that we have an educator on this panel. But Flocabulary started in 2004. I was a musician by training and met another musician, and we basically, through a bunch of conversations playing pickup basketball before our waiter shifts, we talked about how, our own experience as good students in good schools, we were bored. And that if we were bored with all of the advantages and privileges that came with those schools, how must it be for every other student who doesn't have those advantages? And we hit on the idea of, it was actually my co-founder Blake's idea that he had when he was a student. Why doesn't someone make a rap album with SAT vocabulary words in it? And I was a producer at the time and had a little studio in my studio apartment, like 5 feet away from my bed. This is not a glamorous recording studio. But we made one song, the first Flocabulary song, and sent it out to teachers and students and media outlets and publishers to see the reaction. And the reaction was unanimous from everyone, which is, make more, please. We love this. And that was really surprising to us because we thought it was the nerdiest thing that had ever been done in music. And over the years, as we've built now thousands of videos and student creativity tools and gotten to work with districts like Atlanta Public Schools, what remains important is directly tackling engagement really from 2 standpoints. Number one, what's happening cognitively in students' brains in the classroom. And it just so happens that music lights up the brain, all music, in different ways. Mozart stimulates our auditory cortex. James Brown, it makes us want to move, and those parts of the brain. Turns out that rap actually directly activates a response because it's so immediate. The voice, the proximate voice in rap is so strong. So what's going on in students' brain cognitively? How can we light up the brain more in the classroom so students are receptive to learning? But then also the importance of youth culture. The foundation of Flocabulary is really about respecting and reflecting student interests in the classroom. And we believe that if students' voices and interests are not reflected, then they will be less motivated and willing to learn. So it starts, from my perspective, with the curriculum as a support to the educator who also has to make that leap and want to be where their students are culturally. So music and the brain, youth culture sort of coming together to tackle what we are calling the engagement crisis.
Yeah. So, and I think it reminds me of people have said that Hamilton has probably done more for U.S. history education in the U.S. than other things. But let's start with, we didn't come up with this title for this panel. So, but I did want to, it's a provocative panel. I got all of you here. But I want to ask all of you, do you really think, let me just say, do you think there is a student engagement crisis? You know, it's a little bit like when we think about the good old days, and you realize actually the good old days were actually not so good. You know, more people died of, you know, all sorts of diseases and all sorts of things like that. So, do we really have a student engagement crisis? And if so, why do you actually think that that is the case? I mean, you know, is it a student engagement crisis? Is it actually a teacher's ability to actually engage in crisis? Really, what is the problem? Why don't we start with you, Amir?
Thank you. So definitely we have it. I think there are two issues that is fundamental in engagement. One is that the content that is come to the kids and the effort we're asking them goes to a traditional thing that, you know, you do well in a school, you get a good job, you get a good grade, you get a good job, you get a good salary, and you'll be happy. And here you're a 10-year-old kid looking at you 15 years down the road is eternity. And if we had a way that what you learn was applicable now, today, this moment, I think it will change the whole game. I come from the STEM side, from the math side. Right. And if, you know, 2 + 2 = 4 was that I have, you know, a robot which is at the position 2 and adding a 2 takes it 2 steps forward, that would be very different than, you know, having a 2 + 2 = 4. The issue is that you have to have this in equitable fashion. Every kid should have, every teacher should be there, such that they can use it. That's one. The other one is that you need to have the teacher engagement also. If the teacher is not engaged, you cannot have the student engaged. And we cannot bring this for just the teachers which are progressive or the teachers that want to do it. You have to bring this for, you know, 90% of the teachers which are underpaid, overworked, and the scores are low, and you're asking them, no, I give you one other piece in the classroom. Please do this for 10 minutes every session, and then if you see something good, and the teacher says, well, I'm already behind, or I'm already full of the task I have. I mean, what are you talking about? So having an engagement issue with both for the kids and for the teacher is critical. There is, you know, a huge problem, but at the same time, I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
The nice thing about having this big problem is if we can, you know, if we do even with 80-20 rule, if we solve 20% of this engagement problem, we can have 80% effect because the problem is so large.
Aleigha, let me bring you into that. Is that kind of, is he describing the problem that you see every day in the schools?
I definitely think so. If you think about what school districts focus on, one of their big data points is the graduation rate, right? So that's one of the things that they tout is we have a 90% graduation rate, or we've got to get the graduation rate up. What does that mean? That means kids aren't graduating, they're not finishing, they're dropping out. So there's definitely an engagement issue. We need to get kids in the seats at school. That's number one. And there are a lot of different things that are pulling on them. I mean, if you're coming from an urban district, there are other things that are pulling on them as well. Different, you know, societal factors. You've got so much education and information at your fingertips. Kids are like, why do I have to sit in this class? I can look this up. What is the teacher going to tell me that I already can't see? So you're fighting against a lot of that. So I do agree with you. Teacher engagement is a huge deal. I know one thing that our superintendent came in and did is immediately let's talk about what does the teaching model look like. If you're in a district, aren't you used to going through those different changes? How do we get the kids more engaged? What kind of model should we have? Should it be inquiry-based learning? Should it be project-based learning? I mean, if you're in education more than 10 years, you go through this like 15 times, right? And so all of those things are ways to get teachers to be more engaging and to engage the kids. So it's an epidemic, I feel like.
Now, Rajiv, it sounds like Nearpod's approach to this is to make the curriculum more engaging. So that's kind of the problem to be solved here is whatever we were asking students to use for their curriculum material was boring or not engaging enough. Is that the idea, or is this something? Am I missing it?
I think there is two sides to the equation, as the other panelists have said. There's the teacher side and the student side, and the issue here is, you know, kind of the traditional, you know, what I call the industrial education model. You know, doesn't work anymore, you know, where we adopted some textbooks and then that textbook was going to be it for 8 years and the content was going to be relevant. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Right. You know, we need to have content that's relevant to today's students today. You know, so Flocabulary puts out a video every week, you know, saying this is the week in rap and what it is that actually happened. That's the kind of immediacy you need. And traditional publishers just have not sort of kept pace with that kind of curriculum innovation. And you need teachers to be able to go ahead and adapt to that also. And for teachers to be excited about using these things and saying, okay, yes, I understand where students are coming from today. It's a different day and age. It's not the 19th century. It's a different day and age. They have so many different stimuli. And we've got to be able to make sure that we deal with them and in today's day and age with today's tools.
Okay, but let me just push back a little bit because it's not necessarily that I disagree, but we're going to learn and be a little provocative. Just singing all this stuff is not just a little kind of gimmicky. I mean, literally, I went to I kind of liked it. It was like a little bit hip hop and all this stuff. I kind of figured out the point of view. I looked at the top video. But it seems a little gimmicky. I mean, where's the seriousness about learning? This is serious stuff.
That's a good question.
Thank you, John, for pushing my buttons.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a relevant
And by the way, I'm
appreciate
sure
that.
everyone asks you to sing something, but I won't do that unless you feel like it.
No, I am a singer. I'm not a rapper, so I won't rap today. But yes, is it a gimmick? Absolutely not. Music is the oldest form of communication that humans have, right? And long before we wrote anything down, we were learning through music and chant and rhythm, right? So this is the foundation of literacy. Homer's Odyssey, it's a very thick book, right? A tome. It was not written down for 300 years. It was passed down in the Greek because it had meter, right? So our brains are conditioned to learn through music. And the fact that it disappears after preschool is just ridiculous. We're doing a disservice to our kids by not having them learn in a way that the brain evolved to learn, right? If any of you saw Dr. Brackett, I believe was his name, the Yale professor this morning, he put up some word clouds about how students are feeling and how educators are feeling. And on the student side, he said bored was the biggest one, right? And on the educator side, he said frustrated. So imagine that dynamic, bored kids and frustrated teachers. How is that going to work, right? It's not a good starting place. And what I would say is that too much pressure is put on teachers to be the engagement factor, right? We have to start with curriculum because we need to support educators. They're already doing classroom management, discipline, after school. They're doing everything and underpaid for it. And we're saying, and by the way, be like a game show host as well. Like be the most charismatic leader you can be every day in your classroom. That's not acceptable. I think the blame we have to bring to this is the curriculum companies, right? If I'm pointing fingers, it's to the publishers that have gotten away with sending out the same boring textbooks for 100 years. It's just not fair.
But I think that, Sarah, you got to clap. I think that there's the least amount of thing that a teacher can control is the curriculum. Like they just can't control it. It is what it is. The states have adopted it. And there's this pesky little thing called teaching and learning standards. If your company is not focused on helping students to become proficient in those learning standards, then teachers are going to continue to be frustrated. We're going to continue to see where ed tech does not bring on transformational teaching and learning. Because standards drive everything, unfortunately. I mean, it would be great to say we could rap our way to the top. No shade against Flocabulary whatsoever. But it would be great if we could say that we could do that. I mean, I agree with it. My kid loves it. I saw Hamilton twice, paid a lot of money to see Hamilton twice. But, it's not going to do anything for that standardized test. It's just not. And so that's the piece. I think as educational companies, you have to ask yourself, do I have educators in curriculum development with me? Do I have educators that are doing my professional learning? That's a huge piece for teachers. No one does professional learning around ed tech, not even the teacher preparation programs. Believe it or not, it's not there, doesn't exist. So our new teachers that are coming out, we think, oh, they know technology. No, they know Snapchat, like they know Instagram. They don't know technology integration for academic proficiency. That's the thing. So I just think we just have to keep that in mind, that curriculum is what it is, the standards are what they are, now we got to work through that.
So,
Yay.
fantastic. So I think to the 3 points here, it just kind of summarize what we said and maybe give a better context. One is that not every engagement is useful. I mean, if you have engaged in whatever, I don't want to take on music. Music is fantastic. Some other reason, some game or something is engaging. All the kids are doing and clicking. But if learning doesn't happen, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Correct? So this is what we call chocolate-covered broccoli. We actually, from 2015...
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. Chocolate-covered. From 2015 to 2017, we tried 4 generations of prototypes in hundreds of schools in Northern and Southern California. And the 3rd generation, because we needed engagement, we went chocolate covered broccoli. Chocolate was the game, broccoli was the computational thinking and math inside it. The kids get excited, bite on the chocolate. It was a very nice game. We got a partner, which they did great. But then as soon as they hit, oh, there's a math problem, say, oh, okay, so what's a grade, when I should give it back, the whole thing falls down. So what happened is, we had an aha moment, and what happened is we realized what we're missing is there is a joy in math and problem solving. Aleigha, which is the math teacher, which is co-founder or starting point of the Polyup, says always, if you touch the joy of math, you're not going to leave it. But there's barriers to touch it. One of the barriers is, I'm not the mathy guy. My cousin is good at math, or my friend is good at math, but I'm not. I'm not born to be mathy. The fixed mindset, don't have a growth mindset. And the other thing is, you have to have an impact around you now. These are the barriers. Now, in the 4th generation, what we did is, we found out that the aha moment of solving a problem is so exhilarating that make them do it again and again. So now we're not hiding math. When you come, the first time you see is a math problem, but it's in a highly interactive way. It's highly equitable. It runs on every device. It's free. There's no payment. No district needs to put a budget for it. You can just use it. And when the kid does the first one, gets hooked, oh shit, I did it. And there's a character, which is orange, of course. And it jumps out, and Polly says you solve it, and you go to the next one. And now we have a problem that they get engaged a lot, that they get home and play with it. Only in 3 months, 10 million problem got solved. And none of you knew before this, and now you know it. And then what happens is every moment that they get engaged is a moment that you get learned, something relevant. Now, the second piece. And I want to be very provocative here because you said so, and I'm a kid with orange suit, so I can talk about that. So the issue is we are assuming education can be run very structured and have everything done by a set of publishers. And I don't think that's possible, not because publishers are not good, because the task is bigger than that. You have standards that you have to do. She's right. We have to solve it. The standards will make change and become better, but that's only light that they can measure with. Now, you have a standard, you have 10 books for it. Every book goes to 10 districts, they have different approach, and every teacher has a different approach. How do you capture that? So what if you have a way to enable the teacher actually have his own way of content, own way of teaching? So what we did is we made it so casual that every teacher can make their own problem. They can copy paste the problem from another teacher, make a new one. And now in 3 months, we have 500,000 problems have been done by students and teachers, and they share it with each other. So there is no excuse to sacrifice one versus another. We have to have an engaging environment, and it has to be aligned with the standards. We cannot say, well, I want to be engaging, so a standard, okay, we'll do later. Or no, I have to be in a standard. You have to go there, suffer, and learn. Neither one work. So we should get used to, as technology companies, that we cannot shove technology through the school system, and we have to take their requirements serious. They want both. Okay. It's our problem, not theirs. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you don't have to start. You don't have to excuse. And please give him an applause. You can applause everybody else.
Passion.
Yeah, we got the passion. All right, so let me switch gears a little bit. I was flying down here on Southwest Airlines, and you know how the flight attendants always try to make some fun joke or something like that, and she said, hey, the Wi-Fi is out, so all of you're going to have to try to entertain yourselves with each other by speaking to each other or reading a book or something like that. Yeah. So here's the question. I mean, we're talking about engagement, and when I go to your websites and look at your website, you got a bunch of kids staring at screens. That doesn't sound like engagement in the real world to me. I'm being a little provocative.
I want to jump on that.
Yeah, we want to jump, right? So like why not teach students and teachers to be engaging with each other, speak to each other, make each other, stimulate their intellect? Why do they have to look at a screen all day long? Right. So jump in.
Yeah, so if you define literacy broadly, it's reading, writing, but it's also speaking and listening, right? And these are the lost arts of literacy, or the arts that are being lost now. So I think that the greatest use of classroom technology is actually to get kids off of technology. I don't imagine a future where we're all looking at screens and sort of wired into the matrix. The most successful part of Flocabulary is a little writing portal where students write their own songs and then get to perform, right? And that performance element is where students really feel their sense of belonging, right? And they can interact with each other and support each other and even critique each other and learn from each other. And so it's not about, we're known for our videos, but it's not about the video. It's about what happens next, the discussion that the video stimulates, or the performance that the student does. And going back to teachers, I think it's what I'm sensing now in the ed tech industry is a return to teacher-centric product development, right? Supporting educators. We know that this model will continue to exist for a very long time, and for good reason. And so the sort of the dreams of 10 years ago, where technology was replacing teachers. I don't know whose dreams they were. Those were not my dreams. But I think those are fading into the reality that the ed tech entrepreneurs need to be teacher-centric in their approach to building product, and also to thinking about standards, thinking about curriculum. This is where the connection is getting stronger back to the classroom.
So, Rajiv, yeah.
Yeah, so I sort of divide people who are trying to help in the education system into 4 categories. There's the traditional publishers, and they're doing the book business, and that's not going anywhere. There's the kind of, I'll be provocative here, and there's kind of what's called the personalized learning people, and those are the guys that I think you're talking about, which have taken the content and have said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put it on a screen, and I'm going to tune it to the student. And the student is just going to sit in front of this computer, and we're going to teach them personalized, because based on the questions that they answer, and somehow a productive citizen is going to come out the other side. And that's not going to happen. So that's not the thing. The third one is, fun for just fun's sake.
Right.
There's the games in the classroom, there's all of that, and it's just entertainment. And I don't think that works either. What we really need, as Alex is mentioning, is how do we make sure that these teachers, who've been in this profession now for a very long time. This is a well-established profession. We know when teachers and students interact, when students and students interact, that's where learning happens. How do we help these guys? There's millions of games out there and programs out there. How do we really help these teachers figure out what is going to be engaging, plus have that academic rigor, plus support that interaction back and forth? Right now the biggest thing is social emotional learning. And the reason why that is because people are stuck to the screens. They need to be able to get out of the screens and talk to each other like we are, and have a discussion, and that's when social emotional learning really happens.
I want to turn to Aleigha, because Aleigha, you talked about turning librarians into media specialists. That sounds like somebody who's going from books to screens.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile these points of view?
I don't want to be one of those people that says, well, my dissertation studies say this, but I'm going to say that because I did a dissertation, and it's an educational dissertation around a certain learning theory, and it's Vygotsky's learning theory, which talks about learning is a social thing. I mean, it actually is a very social component. And I looked at iPads, so I introduced one change, and that was an iPad instruction, and did that breed more socialized learning? And it actually did, because you're using the iPad to do one task or 2 or 3, then you engage with that person, around what that task was. You talk to the teacher about what you just did. The teacher may give you some feedback through Nearpod around the rap that you created and the beat that you made on the iPad. So all of that is that cyclical thing is very social. So what I'm trying to do for librarians who are stuck in the media center all day, every day, with these wooden shelves, y'all have seen them, they look the same. For the last 40 years, they're the same media centers, and the books are there in a row. Why not put an ebook in your media center that can read to the student and let them go through and maybe annotate and find vocabulary words that they didn't know, and just do something different. Engage a kid through QR codes and very interactive books instead of just that same Dewey Decimal System. Go look up the book and this is how you check it out. I mean, that's what they're taught. Library media science is a real thing, and that's what they're taught to do. So I want them to just think about different ways to engage kids into the literacy, but you may have to use a screen to do that. And some of them are having a hard time adjusting to that. So it's not necessarily screen for screen's sake, but a screen is introduced to breed more and more socialized learning, more and more interaction, more and more engagement.
Okay. Yeah, Amir?
Yeah, so I think, technology work, I think, is about things that we don't understand. As soon as we understand something, it's not technology anymore. So the issue right now is that you're saying that they're hooked into the screen. What do they learn? We want at the end, everybody that sits and hooked to the screen or whatever way we teach them something, be able to change the world around them. That's the goal, correct? Each of us, doesn't matter if we become a nurse, we become an engineer, whatever become, at the end we want to have impact the world around us. There is an amazing potential, an amazing future in near future in front of us to use technology, which is not a technology anymore. It's something that you can actually use by using it to change the world around you. I'm talking about STEM right now because that's what we're working on, math and STEM. We are enabling every kid can make this object here become a rocket. I can show it to you today. If you want at the end of this, come and show you today and hold me onto it, throw me out of the window if I didn't show you. I make this object to go up as a rocket and throw another rocket out. I can test physics, the standard, with it. And I'm walking and rocking with this. It doesn't need to be an iPhone. It can be even my Chromebook. And I'm engaged with the world around me, and I'm using technology. So we should really stop saying, in my view, that this technology get them on the screen and is not good, and change the damn thing to don't be technology and be an embedded environment, an ambient environment that kids can do things that they couldn't do 10 years ago.
Okay, so let me shift gears a little bit, because I think all of you are in agreement and largely saying, look, we have to have students be learning. It's not for engagement's sake, It's not just like summer camp or something. We have to learn. But at the end of the day, we have these standardized tests, high stakes tests that all students have to do well on. Are you saying that by having the students and teachers be more engaged, they're going to, number one, love learning? I hear that, right? They're going to love the process of learning more, and therefore they will actually do better on these tests and end up being better citizens. I guess that's what you brought up. I mean, is that what you're advocating, and do you have any proof?
Well, yes, there are many studies connecting engagement and academic achievement. And I think let's talk about the opposite for a second. So the nation's report card on reading, right? For the last 20 years, 4th grade and 8th grade reading scores are flat.
Right.
After 20 years of billions of dollars being invested into reading platforms, right, and reading technology. So something is not working in trying to move the needle on those. The statistics that are not flat are the statistics around are students happy in school, are students engaged in school. So we have a cliff that's happening now where as students progress through the grades, by the time they're in early high school, only 32% of them say that they're engaged, right? And there's another index about happiness that is just as abysmal. So I think there's a direct correlation between joy in the classroom and academic achievement. And that the direct investment in reading, despite all of the really innovative work that has been done in reading platforms over the 20 years, has not worked. This is where social emotional learning comes in. This is where that connection between how a student feels and how a student performs becomes the most important thing.
Yeah, what do you think?
So I think I'll disagree with both of you guys and say the test scores are irrelevant. And I know that many educators feel that way. I know many educators are bound by this testing, regimen that we've got ourselves into. But when you ask the superintendents, what is a good indicator of a school district's success? they don't say test scores. 91% of them say it's the student engagement in learning. So what we need to do is come up with a different measurement. We shouldn't be worried about the test scores. Let's create something which is around the soft skills, which is around 21st century learning, around social emotional learning, whatever it is if we want to call it nowadays. Let's create an engagement index for that one.
Rajiv, you're going to get an applause on that, I'm sure. But we live in the real world.
Right.
Yep.
We do live in the real world. That
Yeah.
sounds like a really nice world that
Right.
you're painting, but
Can
that's
I-
not the real. Wait
can
a
I
second.
disagree?
Yeah.
Wait. I got to get in here a little bit. So that's the real world. And hey, I'm moderating. I am, okay. Now that I have you all engaged, I'm the moderator. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, that's the real world. All right, so that sounds nice, but that's not the real world that we live in. So go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, no. So you
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
I
you
want
go
to
ahead.
say something.
Yeah, go for it. Go
So
for it.
I'm not mad about this,
Yeah.
and I know we're in the real world. But I will say this: one of the things that our district is doing is exactly what y'all are saying. We're creating a metric to measure other things around.
Yes!
We are. We're
That
doing
is awesome.
We're doing that now. It's been a huge challenge though because. No one really cares that you have joy of learning in this classroom. No one really cares that because we socialize to think that standardized tests work, the metric for real. You get a report card, this school's an A school, this school's a D school, and that's kind of what we know in our communities. But we are working in Atlanta Public Schools to have different levels to say, look at all the kids that are taking AP courses. This is awesome. That means, they're headed towards college, and look at how many people are in college and career workforce kind of studies, who's doing more CTAE courses. So we're looking at some of these different things because we know that there are great things happening in schools. We know that kids are engaged, but the standardized test score, that still umbrella is huge. It's there, but districts have to take control of that.
Okay, but can I
message.
just jump in with one thing?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something provocative. I feel like this is a question of privilege. So when you have privileged families saying, you know what, test score is important, but I don't care. I want my kids to be happy. I want them to be engaged. I want them to learn. But if I was a Korean immigrant, like my parents were like, yeah, I want you to be happy, but you better get that 100 on the math score because that's going to make you really happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, so
I agree with you.
right. So I mean, it feels a little bit like almost a class, kind of a socioeconomic class discussion around that. Does it have to be?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
I think.
Say why not?
Well, I think over time, as more districts do this kind of work and have the new measures, what they're going to start doing is mapping the data on social emotional learning or on engagement to the data on state test scores. It's not that one is replacing the other.
Right.
It's that we're going to start to see that the kids who report high levels of happiness and engagement and participation and perseverance and whatever those measures are also the same kids who are starting to do better, right? And so I think they'll work in concert to tell the bigger
And
story.
I think it's showing
Amir's
a full
been trying to
view,
get in.
What I want to disagree with that is, I mean, let's face it, you said this is real life, but I want to put the size of in real life. Most of the people here have kids. Well-being of kids is critical in life. We are not just another industry on the side. This is bread and butter of living. So we cannot kid with it. It's easy to say that the tests are not a real indicator of happiness. They're not. They're not real indicator of knowledge and science. They're not. But that's what we have is a $100 billion industry behind it and all these schools. So again, let's instead of dismiss that exists, let's let's use technology, turn it to not be something weird and be in real classrooms and achieve that standards higher and bring the other things that we think is missing and test scores don't measure. And again, the soldier in this are the teachers. We have been out there for 3 months. It's hard to have 5-year study of showing pre-test, post-test. We don't have it. But we have teachers, for example, in Southern California, in a school which is 100% free and reduced lunch, 50% homeless. And yes, in California, there are schools like that. The teacher, 7th grader, has brought to us the study that he did. It's not a Stanford study. We just started a Stanford study, but this is not. This is from a teacher. And he says he turns 12 problems of the worksheet to these chips in the environment of Polyup. And when they solve it, this is his stat. He says the completion rate increased from 25% to 80% at half a time, and comprehension increased from 20% to 50%. I asked, his name is Mark, I asked Mark, how do you measure comprehension? He says, I did a test that I had before and after. But then he stand and said, but you know the kids were much more engaged. He didn't have a score to show me, because he doesn't know how to measure it. He said he has videos to show. But he achieved both. And again, is excuse for us, and I'm saying it for us as at EdTech and those that bring, that we get the excuse, we can have engagement, it's hard to be about scores. If you want to be a scores now, we don't have social emotional engagement. I mean, it's important, it's the health of our kids, for God's sake. Put your creativity in place and solve all in parallel. We should stop having that excuse.
So you all agree that this is not a trade-off, that there is a way to do all
there is a way to do it.
I agree.
Way to do it.
There is a way to do both. I just wish that the scores were not the only indicator that
Right.
we were looking at.
Yeah.
That there was
change.
what
takes time?
Aleigha is doing in Atlanta.
So what do we need to do to change it?
I just think you need to educate your communities on other indicators around what makes a whole child. And there's a lot of things that make a whole child not standardized test scores. They don't drive it. There are other things that make, a student a student. And I think districts have to tout what that is. Yeah. We don't tell our story. We don't really go out and say, but we did this and look at what we did here and look. We don't do that. We let the AJC, which is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, publish our standardized test scores, and then we form an opinion about that school based on the grade that school got. Yeah.
So listen,
and that's it.
So listen, I think I agree with all of you, but let me just kind of play out the other. I'm going to play out the other. No, I'm going to play out the other side of the argument. That sounds like a trust me argument. Mm-hmm. Trust me. Mm-hmm.
That's
right?
huge,
That's a trust me argument, not a, I can show you how all this relates argument, right? So how do you get people over that? I mean, one of the fundamental issues around education is that the end result, quote unquote, whatever the end result may be, is so far away, right? So that, when you read these beautiful mission statements, we're going to produce, we're going to educate people who are going to be wonderful global citizens, do wonderful things in their life, and blah, 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 blah. And if you're a second grade teacher, who's going to ever hold you accountable for not doing that or doing that, right? So it's a trust me business.
She's in charge of that. She doesn't let those that doesn't work go in.
So this is all about Aleigha doing a good job. Yeah. So how do we get over that? I mean, so I'm just really pushing on the thing that says, hey, it's one thing to say we're going to change it, but actually, how do you actually do that? And what role can each of you play in that? I'm going to come to you last. I'm going to go over there, Alex.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think it unfortunately it moves in glacial pace, right? To measure, to see this systemic change. We're talking about a fundamental change in the way we define student success. That's not going to be overnight, right? There are a lot of very smart organizations doing that, but I think we have to be patient. How long did it take to get us to the point where reading and math were the indicators of knowledge? Many dozens of years, many generations. Now we're shifting the other way, and I think we have to be patient. The only thing I would say in the meantime is get community members and business leaders into classrooms. See a high engagement classroom and a low engagement classroom, and it's very obvious where the learning is taking place, right?
Do you think you can evaluate teachers on student engagement, Aleigha?
I
mean, we test the students. Should we evaluate the teachers on their ability to engage?
I think you evaluate teachers on their ability to plan for good instruction, which we evaluate now, right? Deliver that great instruction and then assess that great instruction. So we do that now. You cannot do that unless kids are engaged. You're not going to do that well unless kids are engaged. So I don't think you call it, are you engaging students, teacher, yes or no? You don't call it that, but there are things that you can evaluate that lead into that, for sure.
You know it when you see it.
You know it when you see it, and those walkthroughs, we know.
Yes.
So I think we have an example that we have put up, something called VisPoly challenge. And what works is you make a problem, you share it, I solve it, I get 10 coins. You get 2 coins every time some students succeed. an amazing thing happened. Students and teachers are now making more problems because they get coins. How you change a hard problem, one way is to be patient. I'm a kid, I cannot be patient. So what you do is you begin partnerships. Education is not something that any of us can do it. Microsoft or Google alone cannot do it. We have to realize that this is a complex system. It has schools, it has districts, companies, edtech companies. It has a lot of funders that they love to put their money behind. It's not, everyone says it's an issue of the money. There's a lot of money out there, but they're scared because they spent another $1 billion the last 5 years, many of these foundations, and they didn't get much for it. So we need to bring partnership around. We are now partnered with Avid, for example, and they're training 70,000 teachers a year. They didn't accept this overnight. They tested once, and they said, 100,000 coin got generated, 10,000 problems got solved in 1 week before the holidays. And that was the indication of not only student engagement, but the teacher engagement. And the teachers won some prizes.
Yeah.
So there are ways to do it. The way to do it is do partnership. There is no way any company or any organization or any district alone can solve this.
Okay. Well, listen, we have 4 minutes left, and so I want to ask each of you just a question, and then we'll wrap it up. And I think the question is, so what's next in terms of engagement? I mean, clearly, each of you are in the, I guess maybe Alex, you're a little bit different in the sense that you've been kind of referring back to the old, the basics of singing and rhymes and things like that as a way to teach. But what's the next frontier in terms of engagement? What do we need to do? You guys have clearly been creating these engaging curriculums that are open and marketplace and things like that. Where are we headed? We've got just under 4 minutes, so maybe you can just give us a quick, high-level answer, and then we'll wrap it up. And we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about the teacher. The classroom revolves around the teacher. So what we've got to do is we've got to be able to enable teachers to figure out how do they navigate the traditional curriculum people, the hundreds of tools out there and whatnot. So, from a Nearpod perspective, what we're out there trying to figure out is, can we create a comprehensive student engagement platform? Where teacher can basically say, I'm going to find well-curated, well-considered, super engaging, curriculum, instruction, and I can just start with that. And then I can always customize.
Right.
So for us, it's all about serving the teacher and making sure that we can really, give them that head start rather than them having to become rock stars for every single thing, that's in the classroom.
About you, Amir?
I think we should break the chocolate-covered broccoli and put knowledge is power in work. If what you learn, anything, it can be history, it can be physics, it can be chemistry or math, at that moment in the classroom allows you to change something around you, everybody would be engaged. And technology is enabling us to do today. Things you can do with VR and AR, not esoteric one, the ones which relate to curriculum. I'm not talking about a toy. I'm talking about the common core exact curriculum, turning that I can change 2 + 2 is moving this virtual robot from here to there, and every student can have it at 0 cost. That's how you can bring the engagement today. And then you solve the issue of the standards and scores and all this.
How about you, Aleigha?
I'm gonna piggyback off of the 0 cost because that's the huge one for me, and not just for 0 cost for software, but also access. By middle school, kids have access to some type of device that gives them, that opens the door to Nearpod and Flocabulary and to other software. But in an urban district, rural districts, we struggle with every kid having a device. And a meaningful device, not a cell phone where you're trying to do your online course on your mom's data plan on her cell phone. Kids do it, but I don't know if that's the best, route for them to do those things. So we've had some partnerships with some, Sprint and T-Mobile to try to get access. And one thing and you actually kind of mentioned this about partners, they want to know, did we help with the student achievement gap? No, you didn't. You're Sprint. You did not help with the student achievement gap. But that's what they want to know. They want to get that. They want to be able to say that message. But there's so many different factors that go into student achievement. But if you're going to partner with a district, partner because you want to partner Partner because you believe that all students should have access to high-speed internet and to a device, and then let us take it from there. So I would say access is my next big thing.
Okay. How about you, Alex?
You know, I do believe in the ancient competencies of the brain, which you call a gimmick. But I also
I didn't call it that. I said it could be argued that.
No, but I think what it comes down to most for me is culture and understanding the culture of students, making their curriculum culturally relevant, culturally responsive, training educators to understand student culture, and then especially working with curriculum companies to incorporate youth culture and student culture into the programs, to build bridges between academic culture and youth culture, and allow students to make real connections to curriculum.
Well, look, all four of you have been incredibly engaging panelists. I want to thank you, and thank you for doing all the hard work of getting students engaged and excited about what they're learning and for our future. So please join me in thanking them. Nice job.